Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem, Daf 40 of Masechta Sukkah. We continue with our discussion about buying daled minim that on shemittah, which of course this year is going to be shemittah. So we continue the discussion about how come shemittah seems to be specifically applying to the esrig, but not necessarily to the lulav. Should maybe lulav also have a din of shemittah? Should we have to be concerned about shemittah or not? We see some interesting machloksin there about how exactly to define things that shemittah applies to, and where would eitzim fit into that. And then we get into, at the end, a machlokas between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan about how exactly to transfer the kedusha of shvius. Is it only through business? Can you just, through like transactions? What about, can you just like transfer, kind of like by hektish, can you just transfer the value onto money? So we're going to be discussing all of these things today. Let's start on Daf Lamed Testament Beis. So we kind of stopped a shtickle in the middle yesterday, and I'll tell you something. Today we're going to stop a shtickle in the middle again. This is kind of just like a big, long sugya. So let's start maybe about 8 lines from the bottom of Lamed Testament Beis, Ihachi. Lulav Nami. So the Gemara says, one second. Right, we had a Mishnah yesterday which said that if a fellow purchases daled minim on shvius, on shemittah, so of course the shemittah being the 7th year in the shemittah cycle, where we don't like work the field and stuff like that, and you can't do any business with, you can eat, fruit and stuff, of course you can eat, but you can't do business with parish shvius. Everything is just considered ownerless and hefker. So we said that if you're purchasing daled minim on shemittah, on the shemittah year, so basically shemittah will apply to the esrog and not to the lulav. So therefore, the Mishnah suggested that the person who's selling the daled minim should just give you the esrog for free, because you can't do business with it, so just give it away for free. Okay, fine, we had Rav Huna had a solution that maybe you can bump up the price of the lulav and then give the esrog for free, so at least it's not losing money, whatever it is. But the assumption seems to be that shemittah applies to the esrog, shemittah does not apply to the lulav. So now, Frekti Gemara, Yachi lulav nami. So why don't we say that shemittah applies to the lulav as well? Why should shemittah only apply to the esrog and not to the lulav? So lulav bar shishis anichnas l'shviyasu. So the Gemara answers, well, when it comes to the lulav, when was the lulav grown? The lulav wasn't grown yesterday. It grew over time on the 6th year. And therefore, Memele, the lulav that you're purchasing for your daled minim for Sukkah and Shemitah was really grown, it really began to bud in year 6. So it's not technically speaking a shemittah lulav. Well, if that's the case, wouldn't you say the same thing about the esrog? The esrog didn't just grow yesterday. It grew over the course of the previous year. So this esrog also shouldn't be an issue, because l'maisa it's an esrog from the 6th year of the shemittah cycle. So, and for the Gemara, esrog basar l'kita azlinon, that when it comes to the esrog, in terms of esrogim and shemittah, it's based on when it is harvested, right? It's based on when it's pulled off the tree, and therefore, since if it was pulled off the tree in shemittah in this year, right? What's it? Right? Sukkot is the 15th day of Tishrei, which means if it was pulled off the tree within the past 2 weeks, so it was harvested during the shemittah year, and therefore, when it comes to esrog, it's based on when it was harvested. And if it was harvested in the shemittah year, it's going to be, you have to be concerned about shemittah. And therefore, we're trying to figure out what to do about the esrog. Maybe give it away for free, whatever it is. The lulav, however, we don't go based on when it was harvested. Rather, we go based on when it grew. And it grew in the 6th year. Or when it kind of began to protrude or whatever. Fine. V'ha, bein Rabban Gamliel, uvein Rabbi Eliezer, linin shvius, Esrig basar chanota azlinun. But one second. Why are you assuming that when it comes to esrig and shmita, it goes based on when it was harvested? L'maise, both according to Rabbi Gamliel and according to his brother-in-law Rabbi Eliezer, because of course Rabbi Eliezer was married to Rabbi Gamliel's sister Ima Shalom, as we learned in Masechta Shabbos. I think Daf Kuf Zayin as well, one of those. I think, why not? So both according to Rabbi Gamliel and according to Rabbi Eliezer, when it comes to the esrig and shmita, it goes based on when it grew, not based on when it was harvested. And then, or budded, let's say that, budded. It goes based on when it budded, not based on when it was harvested. And therefore it budded in the previous year. So it shouldn't be an issue of shmita. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, esrig, shave le'ilam begimel drachim v'liyerik b'derech echot. That an esrig is similar to a tree in 3 ways, and similar to a vegetable in 1 way. Shave le'ilam begimel drachim. An esrig is similar to a tree in 3 ways, which are le'orla v'le'reviv v'le'shvius. That the halachas of orla, that for the first 3 years of the esrig tree, you're not allowed to eat the fruits, as well as that in the 4th year, you have to bring it to Yerushalayim, right? It's neter revoy. V'le'shvius, and also when it comes to shmita, it's treated like a tree, i.e., that we go based on when it budded, as opposed to a vegetable which would be based on when it was harvested. V'liyerik b'derech echad, and we say that an esrig is similar to a vegetable in 1 way, which is shebishas l'kitaso isuro divrei Rabbi Gamliel, that we go based on when it's harvested in 1 respect, meaning in vegetables in general, we go based on when it's harvested, and therefore we're saying that when by an esrig, with regard to 1 thing, we go based on when it's harvested, and that is with regard to meiser. What does that mean? Well, of course we know that on years of the Shemitah cycle, on years 1, 2, 4, and 5, in addition to taking Truma and Meiser Rishon, you also take Meiser Sheni. On years 3 and 6, in addition to taking Truma and Meiser Rishon, you take, instead of Meiser Sheni, you take Meiser Oni. And therefore, when this esrig is harvested, so we have to figure out, so when do we take Meiser Sheni or do we take Meiser Ani? So let's say it's the 3rd year, and we have to figure out this esrig. Are we treating it as Meiser Rishon or Meiser Ani, Meiser Sheni or Meiser Ani? So says Rabbi Gamliel that legabe Meiser Sheni versus Meiser Ani, we go like a vegetable. We go based on when it was harvested, and if it was harvested in the 3rd year, so it's Meiser Ani, even though it budded in the 2nd year. That doesn't matter. We go based on when it was harvested. Rabbi Eliezer Omer esrig shav l'ilon l'chol davar. And Rabbi Eliezer says that an esrig is like an ilan, it's like a tree with regard to everything. Even when it comes to Meiser Sheni and Meiser Ani, it's going to be like a tree, i.e. it goes based on when it budded, and therefore if you harvest it in the 3rd year, but it budded in the 2nd year, it would be Meiser Sheni, not Meiser Ani. No, so what do we see, friends? We see that both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Gamliel agree that esrogim, when it comes to Shemitah, it's like a tree. It goes based on when it budded, not like when it was harvested. So again, going back to our Mishnah, where we're saying that while the lulav, we don't have to be concerned about Shemitah, and the esrog, we do have to be concerned about Shemitah. Well, if we're going to explain that, well, the lulav budded the previous year, so it's not you don't have to be concerned about Shemitah. Shouldn't we say the same thing about the esrog, that it also budded the previous year, and we shouldn't have to be concerned about Shemitah? Because after all, both Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer seem to be agreeing that when it comes to an esrog, it goes based on when it budded in terms of Shemitah, not based on when it was harvested. Huda Amar Ki Tana, and for the Gemara, that the Tana of our Mishnah says like the following Tana. The Tana is we learn in the Brisa, Amar Rabbi Yossi, says Rabbi Yossi, Avtulmus Eid Mishum Chamish Zikenim. Avtulmus, who's Avtulmus? Ich weiß nicht. You guys know who Avtulmus is? I don't know who Avtulmus is. But he testified in the name of 5 elders, esrig. Now when it comes to an esrig, Achalakita the Meiser. Okay, so when it comes to Meiser, as we saw according to Gamliel, it goes based on when it is harvested, in terms of Meiser Sheni, Meiser Ani. Rabbi Seinu Nimnu Be'usha Ve'amru, and our rabbis gathered together in the place called Usha, and they said, bein the meiser, bein the shvi, is that not only do we go based on when it's harvested for meiser sheni and meiser ani, but also for shmita, to determine if it's a 6th-year fruit or a 7th-year fruit. It's going to be based on when it's harvested. Shvius man d'chashmei. In fact, the Gemara, wait a second, who said anything about Shvius? Kilu, the time, right? Avtumos testify in the name of the 5 Zakenim that meiser, that an esrig for meiser goes based on when it's harvested. All of a sudden, these rabbis in Usha are talking about Shemitah. Who said anything about Shemitah? So, the Bryce is missing a few words, and this is what it means to say, which is esrig, that when it comes to an esrig, that it's based on when it's harvested when it comes to determining meiser sheni versus meiser ani. When it comes to determining if it is a 6th-year fruit or a 7th-year fruit, it goes based on when it budded. And the rabbis gathered together in Usha, and they said, esrig, that when it comes to an esrig, basar likita always goes based on harvesting, right, in these two respects, bein lemeiser, bein l'shvius, whether it is for meiser sheni / meiser ani or for shmita, we're always going to go based on when it was harvested, according to these rabbis in Usha. And therefore, the author of our Mishnah, who is saying that when it comes to the esrig on shmita, you give it away for free. So, because we have to be concerned about shmita, he holds like these rabbis in Usha who said that when it comes to shmita, in esrig is judged based on when it's harvested, and therefore it will have kedushas shvius, and that's why you have to be concerned in our Mishnah. Okay, friends, you got it? Very nice. Taima de lulav by shishis anichnas l'shvius hu had shvius kadosh. Friends, what does that mean? What it means is that, okay, so we just said that the reason why we're concerned about the esrig but not concerned about the lulav is, well, for a technicality. The lulav isn't right now kadosh kedusha shvius. Why not? Because it budded last year, and therefore it's a lulav of the 6th year. It's not a lulav of the 7th year. The implication being, of course, who could tell me what the implication is? That if in fact the lulav was from the 7th year, it would have kedusha shvius. Ve'amai frek the Gemara. How come? Eitzim ba'amu. After all, it's just wood. Ve'eitzim mein boim mishum kedusha shvius. And wood doesn't have kedusha shvius. Friends, you hear the question, right? The question is, why are we even assuming at all that a lulav would be relevant for the halachas of shmita? Lulav is a piece of wood. Shmita doesn't apply to pieces of wood. Friends, very nice, right? The Tanyas, we learn in the Brisa, alekonim, when it comes to leaves of cane reeds, v'alegifonim, and leaves of grapevines, shekibavon l'chova, that you harvested, collected them to hide away, to store away, al pnei asadeh, I guess from the field, or on the field. L'katan la'achila yesh b'en mishum kedusha shvius, l'katan le'etzim b'en mishum kedusha shvius. Says this Brisa that when it comes to these leaves, it depends. If you chop them for eating, I don't know, maybe you wanted to make like stuffed grape leaves or something. You guys like stuffed grape leaves? What's your opinion on it? You into it or you're not? Or somewhere in the middle? I'm somewhere in the middle, Lamaisa. So if you chop these leaves for eating, so then you have to be concerned about shvius. But if you chop them for burning, so then, or for wood, some for firewood, so then there's no issue of kedusha shvius. So what do we see, friends? So we see that wood is not relevant to shmita. Shmita doesn't apply to wood. Okay, let's read it again. The Tanya is, we learn in the Brisa, alekonim v'alegifonim, leaves of cane reeds and leaves of grapevines, shegabavon l'chova, that you collected them for storing away, al pnei asada, on the field, l'katan la'achila. So if you chop them in order to eat, well then yesh b'hem mishum kedusha shvius. So then shmita applies. L'katan la'etzim, but if you gather them for wood, well ein b'hem mishum kedusha shvius. It doesn't, shmita won't apply to wood. So friends, so we see, what do we see? So we see that shmita doesn't apply to wood. And if shmita doesn't apply to wood, so then memele, it doesn't apply to the lulav. And if it doesn't apply to the lulav, I don't care if it budded in the 6th year, I don't care if it budded in the 7th year, or in whatever year. Shemitah is irrelevant when it comes to the lulav. So, and for the Gemara, shiny awesome. That case is different. When it comes to the firewood, right? We said that if you gather these cane reeds and these grapevines, if you gather them for firewood, so we said that shemittah is irrelevant. We said, yeah, of course shemittah is irrelevant there. Because the pasuk says, lachem leochla, that it says that on shemittah, any fruits that grow on shemittah, of course you're not allowed to support them and plant them and things like that and water them. You can't do that. But anything that grows on its own, so it's lachem leochla, it's for you to eat. Lachem dumir de leochla. And we compare those two words, the juxtaposition of lachem to leochla, we learned something out from there, which is mishana aso uviuro shavet. That in order for Kedusha Shvius to be relevant, it has to be something that you destroy it as you enjoy it. Right? Meaning, take an apple, a beautiful apple. L'maisa right now, Cheveh, I can use a shtickle advice here. I'll be honest, I can use a shtickle advice here. I don't think it's apple season over here in Eretz Yisrael. It's a shtickle problem. Shtickle problem. Shtickle problem. Gotta find a replacement for the apple in the meantime, at least. I don't know, Chev, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, you have suggestions maybe. Usually I get the pink lady apples from Mizrahi in the Shuk. But I don't know. I don't know what's going on with those apples right now. I just don't think it's the season. The mice, if anybody has advice, I'd be very, very gracious. So if you take an apple, so an apple, how do you enjoy an apple? Pashtus is by eating it. Now, when you eat it, you're also destroying it. So therefore, says the Gemara that Shemitah applies to things where, as you consume them, you destroy them. Okay? Mishana also viuro shava. Shemitah applies to things that enjoying them and destroying them happens at the same exact time. Yatsu eitzim, to the exclusion of wood. Shana also an achar bi'urin. That when it comes to wood, you don't quite get the benefit when you destroy them. Now, the assumption is that we're talking about wood that you're going to burn in a fire, and that you want to create coals, and then cook with the coals. Therefore, when do you destroy the wood? When you burn the wood. You only get the benefit from the wood, though, after the wood has been burned, and now it's a coal, and at that point can you now start getting the benefit. You first have to burn it, and then you get the coal, and then you can use it. So because you don't get the enjoyment at the same time that you destroy it, you only get an enjoyment afterwards. So therefore Shemitah doesn't apply to firewood. And tying it into our case, how does this apply to lulav? Well, a lulav outside of Sukkahs, what would you use a lulav for if it wasn't Sukkahs? Sweeping, l'maisa, as a broom. And therefore, you get the benefit that you get from the lulav is when you sweep with it. And also when you sweep with it, memele, you're ruining it, in terms of being like a beautiful lulav, or a beautiful pond, as you use, I don't know, it gets ruined as you use it. What do you want me to tell you? It's like a toothbrush. You use it, but the more you use it, it's the using it which ultimately ruins it. You use it up. So therefore, Shemitah, even though Shemitah does not apply to firewood, because firewood you only get the benefit after you've destroyed it and it becomes coal, and only then can you cook with it. However, when it comes to lulav, as you're getting benefit from it, as you're sweeping with it, you're also destroying the lulav, and therefore Shemitah does apply to a lulav, and therefore we're asking the question of, is the lulav, did it grow in the 6th year, or did it grow in the 7th year? Does Shemitah apply? Does Shemitah not apply? But 1 second, I can bring you an example of wood that you get benefit from it at the same time that you destroy it, which is oily wood. If you have wood that's very oily, you could burn it, and as you burn it, you're destroying it, but you're also getting light from the oil. So that's an example of wood that you burn, and yet the benefit comes at the same time that you destroy it. Period. Says Rava that yes, but wood in general are for burning and creating and making coals, and therefore even if in this particular case you're going to burn it and get benefit from it at the same time, but in general wood is for burning it and getting benefit later, and therefore all wood is going to be treated as such. Says the Gemara, what does the Gemara say? Eitzim la'asaka tanoi. And we say that whether or not, that when it comes to this wood that you're burning, and therefore the benefit only comes later. No, that the benefit only comes later than the time that you destroy it. That first you destroy it and then the benefit comes later. So this concept of does shemittah apply to situations where the benefit comes later? So that's taka machlokas tanoim. The Tanya is we learn in a brayso in mosun peis shvius lo lemishav lo lechvusa. So you can't use fruits of shvius for soaking things or for laundering things, right? So if you have wine of shvius, that wine that has kedusha shvius, don't soak flax in there or do your laundry in it. I don't know. I guess that's a thing. I don't know. So we're saying don't do that. Okay. Rabbi Yossi Mosin. Rabbi Yossi says it's no big deal. You could do it. You could soak flax in wine of shvius or launder clothing. No problem. My time is the Tanakama. How come the Tanakama says that you may not? Well, the pasuk says that on Shemitah you can have the fruits le'ochla, to eat them. To eat them, sure, but not to soak flax, not to do your laundry. My time is Rabbi Yossi. How come Rabbi Yossi says that you are allowed to soak things and launder things? The pasuk says it's lachem le'ochla. It's to you. Do it. It's yours. Do whatever you want with it. You can even soak. You can even launder. Now the Tanakama says that you're not allowed to soak and launder. What does he do with Rabbi Yossi's pasuk of lachem? L'kol tzorkeichem. Do whatever you want with it. Hahu lachem tumah de le'ochla. So says the Tanakama, that's for a different limud, which is to teach that it lachem le'ochla. It's for you to eat it. Mishana also viuro. Right, so we need eating it yours in a similar way to how you eat it. Mishana also viuro shave, which is that which its benefit and its destroying comes at the same time. Yatsu mishra v'chvusa shana asan achar biuron, to the exclusion of soaking and laundering, that the benefit comes later. Then when it comes to soaking or laundering, right? So let's say, for example, as Rashi points out, well, in both cases, but okay, let's say when it comes to laundering clothing, so after the clothing has been soaking in this wine of shvius, the shvius, after a while the wine becomes no good, so it gets destroyed. But at the same time, the benefit that comes from the soaking of the clothing in the wine really only comes when you later wear the clothing. So therefore, it's an example of something that the benefit comes later. And it comes after it gets destroyed, and therefore shemittah doesn't apply. Which is interesting though, because nonetheless the Tanakama says that you're not allowed to, even though shemittah doesn't apply, kedusha shvius doesn't apply to things that their benefit comes later. But nonetheless, we say the Tanakama is still saying that you're not allowed to soak and launder in kedusha shvius stuff. So I guess that maybe that's the chiddush. It's a little bit funny. Meaning, on the one hand, he's saying that something that the benefit comes later is excluded from shvius, which would sound like then you would be allowed to soak and launder. But at the same time, he's saying, I guess that you learn out from the fact that it says le'ochla, however, that le'ochla, but not lemishra v'lechvusa, I guess. Even though technically speaking, I guess it wouldn't be kedusha shvius. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how to resolve that. But anyways, we see that the Tanakama says though that we compare lachem and le'ochla to say that lachem needs to be similar to le'ochla, that Shvius only applies to things that the benefit comes at the same time that it gets destroyed. Rabbi Yossi, and according to Rabbi Yossi, who says that it says lachem l'chol tzorkeichem. So what does he do with le'ochla v'lo l'mishra v'lechvusa? So aksiv le'ochla hahumi baile le'ochla v'lo l'melugma. So it says Rabbi Yossi, that means that the fruits of shvius are to eat, but not for a medicine. You can't use the fruits of shvius, of shmittah, for medicine. Okay? Kedetana, as you learn in the Brisa, le'ochla v'lo l'melugma. Okay? That the fruits of shvius are for eating and not for medicines. Hatomer le'ochla v'lo l'melugma, o enu ela v'lo l'chvusa. So then then I think the Brisa says, but one second, does it mean to eat and not for medicine? Maybe it means to eat and not for laundering. So kshu omer lachem hari l'chvusa omer. So we say no. When it says lachem for you, it means you could launder with it. Hamani mekayim le'ochla. So then what does it mean le'ochla? Le'ochla v'lo l'melugma. Means to eat it, but not for medicine. Okay. How come you are including bathing, laundering, and excluding medicine? Right? Because Rabbi Yossi is saying that the ochla, it says lachem for you. You can even launder your clothing, kedusha shvius stuff. But at the same time, it says the ochla v'lo l'mlugma, not for medicine. How come we're excluding medicine and including laundering? So my b'aniyas akvusa, it's because I'll include the laundering sheshav b'chol adam, because everybody does laundry. L'maisa, I have to do laundry today. I've been pushing it off for a very long time. I have to mamish do it. I got to mamish do it. So everybody needs to do laundry. Everybody, even me. Even a nudnik like me needs to do laundry. Umotziyas amalugma, and I'll exclude the malugma, the medicine, she'einu shavel l'chol adam, because not everybody is in need of medicine. So therefore, we're going to exclude medicine from things that you can do with kedusha shvius. Interesting. Mantana l'adutanu rabbanan. Who's the author of the following brisa? Le'ochla v'lo l'mlugma. Okay, it says that you're allowed to eat kedusha peris shvius, but not medicine. Le'ochla v'lo l'ziluf. You can eat it, but don't. Right? We've seen this before in the past, that they would sometimes take wine and kind of like sprinkle it around the house because it smells good. Le'ochla v'lo la'asos v'mena apiktivizin. You can eat it, but don't make. Remember these barf elixirs. There was some kind of drink that you would drink it and puke. So we say the ochla v'lo, and not for a piktivizin. Kiman, who's that like? Rabbi Yossi. It's like Rabbi Yossi, the Rabbanan, because if it was the rabbis, so you can now mishra chvusa. The rabbis also have two more things that you're not allowed to do with kedusha shvius, which is that you're not allowed to soak it, like soak flax in it, and you're also not allowed to do your laundry in it. Okay, now we get to an interesting machlokas between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan about transferring the kedusha of perish shvius, right? Let's go weiter. Shtickle. Amar Belazar says Rabbi Elazar, "Ein shvius mischaleles ela derech mekach." So says Rabbi Elazar that if you have fruits that are shvius, and then you so you have Reuven. Reuven's got fruits that have kedusha shvius, and he sells them to Shimon. So now the money that Shimon pays Reuven now takes on the holiness of the of shmittah. So now the money that Reuven receives for the fruits have kedusha shvius. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the fruits nonetheless remain holy with kedusha shvius. So now you have the fruit and the money both have kedusha shvius, and you'd only be allowed to use this money to buy food and stuff. Okay, so something like that. So ein shvius mischaleles ela derech mekach. Rabbi Yochanan Amar says Rabbi Yochanan bein derech mekach bein derech chilul. That whether by way of purchasing, like we explained with Reuven and Shimon, that if Reuven sells kedusha shvius fruits to Shimon, so then the money that Shimon pays Reuven for it takes on the holiness of shmittah. And in addition, says Rabbi Yochanan, also there are chilul, right? Just like we've seen, by Meiser Sheni, for example, you could transfer the value, the kedushas Meiser Sheni onto money. So here also, when it comes to perish shvius, I could take money and I could transfer the holiness of Shvius onto that money. Okay? My time with Rabbi Elazar, how come Rabbi Elazar says that the only way for money to take on the holiness of Shvius is through business, is through searching, selling or whatever, trade, transactions? The pasuk says b'shnasa yovel azos v'gomer. So the pasuk mentions yovel, and yovel has the same halachas of shemittah. V'samach le v'chisimkru mimkar, and it says immediately afterward in the next pasuk v'chisimkru mimkar. It talks about selling things. So derech mekach v'lo derech chilul. So what we learn from there is that the holiness of Perish Shvius is transferred to money, or at least extended to money, only by way of a transaction. For Rabbi Yochanan, my timer, and how come Rabbi Yochanan says that you can even transfer this Kedusha Shvius to money by way of just being podeh onto money? They could. So I don't know if I'll have to look into this, but if according to Rabbi Yochanan, what this means is that Kilu Yumam is like transferring the value, right, the holiness of Shvius, the Kedusha Shvius from the fruits onto the money, and now the money has Kedusha Shvius and the fruits don't. That might be what Rabbi Yochanan is saying. So he's saying that in addition to a financial transaction, like buying Kedusha Peris Shvius, you can also just transfer the value from the fruits onto the money. Okay. Where am I? Rabbi Yochanan, my timer. So how come Rabbi Yochanan says that you're allowed to transfer the value onto money? The Kedusha onto money. My timer, the pasuk says, Ki Yoveli Kodesh. It says, it's Yovel Kodesh Yeh Lochem. And again, Yovel, as the same halacha says, Shemitah. And it says, Ki Yovel Hi Kodesh. It's Yovel, it's Kodesh. Ma Kodesh, just like when it comes to Hektish. Right? If I set aside an animal to be a korban and it's not actually a kosher animal, so I could be, right, it's not going to be a kosher korban, maybe it has a mum or something, so I could transfer its value onto money, and now the money has kedusha and the animal becomes chulin. So, ma kodesh ben derech mekach ben derech chilul, just like when it comes to hektish, if I sell it, so then the money gets the value of the hektish, so, or I could just transfer its value to money. So, Shvius, ben derech mekach ben derech chilul, also when it comes to Perish Shvius, whether I make a transaction or whether I simply transfer its kedusha onto money, that money will take on kedushas shvius. Rabbi Yochanan, hay kisimkru mimkar my avilei. What does Rabbi Yochanan do with the pasuk with Rabbi Elazar's pasuk that we say? Well, right next to the discussion of Yovel, it talks about selling stuff. So says Rabbi Elazar, it means that the only way for money to take on kedusha shvius is through a transaction. What does Rabbi Yochanan do with that juxtaposition? So mibar delech Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, it needs it for like Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina explains. The Tanya Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, come and see how significant, how serious even the dust of shvius is. Like the side effects, the lesser important things of shvius are. What's of course the main halachas of shvius? Not working your field. But there's a side, there's like an additional halacha in the context of shvius, which is don't do business with perish shvius. Don't do business with them. It's kind of like a technical halacha, meaning it's not the main thing. The main thing on shemittah is don't work your field, but also don't sell the fruits, and therefore it's kind of the dust, the particles of shvius, like meta kind of shvius kind of stuff. And yet, a fellow who does business with the fruits of shvius, in the end, he's going to end up selling all of his, movable objects, veskelav, and his clothing, his vessels. Shinemar, as the pasuk says, b'shnas hayovel azos tashuvu ish achbuzaso. It says that in this year of Yovel, everybody will go back to his property. V'samachlein, it says next to it, v'chisimku mimkar lamisech v'gomer. It talks about selling stuff. So, says Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, we see how significant even the sort of the meta things about Shemitah are, that a person does business with Kedusha Shvius, in the end he ends up selling all of his stuff. So we see it's pretty serious. So that's what Yochanan learns out from the juxtaposition of Yovel and selling stuff. But not like Rabbi Elazar, who says that it teaches that money can get the value, the Kedusha of Shvius only through transactions. No, that Rabbi Yochanan does not learn it out that way. Rabbi Elazar, Hai Krod, Rabbi Yochanan Mayovele. What does Rabbi Elazar do with Rabbi Yochanan's pasuk, which says, Ki Yoveli Kodesh, that we compare Yovel / Shmita to Hektish, which you could transfer onto money, be mechalal onto money. So Lichdetani, Rabbi Elazar needs it for the following brisa: Ki Yovel hi Kodesh, that Yovel is Kodesh, ma Kodesh tofes is damav, just like Kodesh, just like Hektish. You can what you sell. If you sell Hektish, so now the money takes on the Kedusha. So Shvius tofeses is domeh. Also, when it comes to Shemitah, when you sell the fruits, the money takes on the Kedushas Shvius. And Chaver, we're going to stop here because then it kind of continues for a while. But that is the machlokas between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan about how can money take on the holiness of Shvius. Rabbi Elazar says it's only by selling it, where Rabbi Yochanan says in addition to selling it, you can also be mechalal. You can also transfer the Kedusha of the fruits onto the money. Okay, that was daf Mem of Masechta Sukkah. Let's do a shtika review. So the first part of the daf discussed esrig with regard to Shemitah, right? At what point is an esrig, how do we judge if an esrig is considered Shemitah esrig or not? So the Tana of our Mishnah wants to assume, and we said it's like these rabbis in Usha, that it goes based on when the fruit is harvested, right? And if the esrog is harvested in Shemitah, so then it's going to have Kedusha Shvius. However, we saw that Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer both agree that it's not like that. Rather, the esrog is based on when it buds. And if it budded in the 6th year, so then it would not have Kedusha Shvius. If it budded in the 7th year, so then it does have Kedusha Shvius. And then we moved on to discuss wood. And does wood have Kedusha Shvius? And we saw an interesting machlokas essentially between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi. That the Tanakama's opinion is that in order for something to have Kedusha Shvius, it has to be something that you get the benefit from it at the same time that you destroy it. Okay? So for example, an apple, at the time that you eat the apple, you're also destroying the apple. You're getting benefit at the same time that you're destroying it. Now, when it comes to wood, wood, you really, at least if it's like firewood, you really only get the benefit later on once it becomes a coal. And therefore, it would be excluded from Kedusha Shvius. However, Rabbi Yossi doesn't learn like that, and rather he says that no, even if it's things that the benefit comes later, it would still apply to Kedusha Shvius. Now, the reason why this came up is because we wanted to ask, well, shouldn't a lulav just be considered wood? And the answer is actually no, because even according to the opinion that says that Kedusha Shvius only applies to things that the benefit comes at the same time that it's destroyed, a lulav, its main purpose is actually as a broom, to sweep. And as you get the benefit of sweeping with the broom, you're also destroying the palm branch. So therefore, Shemitah would apply to it, and that's why we had to answer regarding the lulav that the reason why the lulav is not going to be shaykh to Shemitah is only because it's from the previous year. But if it was from that year, it would be shaykh to Shemitah. Then we got to a machlokas between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan regard to how can money take on the Kedusha of Shvius. And Rabbi Elazar says the only way for money to take on the Kedusha of Shvius would be through a financial transaction, such as if you sell money, if you sell Perish Shvius, so then the money that you receive for it has the holiness of Shvius. Rabbi Yochanan says in addition to selling, you can also simply transfer the holiness of the fruits onto money, just like by Hektish, and then the money as the holiness of Shvius as well, of Shemitah. Cheve, that was Daf Mem of Masechta Sukkah. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. Peace out.